Hi, I'm Taylor Baltimore and welcome to my stage makeup tutorial. Very excited today to teach you two different things. First, I am going to teach you a very basic look that would work for playing any gendered character on stage that you should be able to do for any kind of production. Then I'm going to take it a little further and I'm going to pick a specific character and show you how you can take your stage makeup and make that turn into your character's personality. There's three things I really want you to remember. One, this is not how you should do your makeup every day. Two, this is a way for you to express your character. So you have to take yourself out of it a little bit and think about how this is going to look on stage and how this is going to be right for the character that you are portraying. And that is really what stage makeup is about, as opposed to your makeup for every day. And number three, I have a lot of tools. I'm a professional makeup artist. You probably don't have all of these tools, but over time you can pick up a thing here or there. A lot of the applications I'm going to do, I will use brushes, but you could always use your fingers or disposable applicators or sponges. There's lots of different kinds of things you can do. So don't feel like you have to run out and buy a million things just to do your stage makeup. First thing I'm going to do is get my headband on, because normally when I would be getting ready to go on stage, I'd probably have my hair braided, getting ready to go in a wig. But since I don't, I'm just going to cover up that so that I don't get any of my makeup in my hair. The next thing I'm going to do is really important. I always want to make sure I start my makeup with nice moisturized skin. Your makeup will go on a lot smoother if your skin's a little hydrated. Everybody has different skin, so you want to make sure that you have one that works for you. But always a step one, you don't have to have a fancy primer for theater makeup, but everything you do will go on better if you just moisturize. And then I also don't put this moisturizer on your eye area, just the skin. So I'm going to start off with a foundation. It's really important for you to make sure that you get a foundation, a liquid foundation that matches your skin tone. I recommend getting help from a makeup artist in a store if you can, or there's some virtual tools you can use to match foundation. Those are really good. With stage makeup, it's really good to look for a matte, long-wearing foundation, full coverage probably as well. You don't want anything that's going to be shiny. You don't want anything that's going to have like a shimmery effect. You want it to be matte, because you're going to get a little warm when you're on stage and you don't want to look extra shiny. So I'm going to use a makeup brush. I'm just using my hand there as like a little palette. And I start in the center of the face, and this is just going to cover up pretty much everything. This foundation goes a long way. And see how it's like neutralizing all the red in my skin and getting rid of it for me, which I appreciate. I'm going to even take it on my lips. Let's go to the other side. And I'm just smoothing that out, because the goal here is just to kind of cover everything up. This is great if you have any little breakouts, kind of cover them. And then I spend some extra time just like rubbing it in and buffing the foundation in. I like to put a little on my eyelids. And see, I just kind of took away a lot of color on my face, and now I'm gonna go add it back in. There we go. The younger a character that you're playing, the brighter you want to look under your eyes. This is something that is really important. A lot of us, we're a little dark under the eyes. It's just where the blood is closer to the skin, and it creates a little, kind of purple circle, or it can be a little more green or brown depending on your skin tone. So I'm going to use a little concealer, and this is a nice bright color, and I'm just going to pop a little on there, and I'm going to use my finger just to blend this in. And this will give me a nice look like I'm a little more awake. But if you're playing a character that's like older or sick, you can actually skip this step. I'm going to show you the difference. See how I look really like wide-eyed and like awake on one side, and this side's like, I need a nap. Definitely hang on to your concealer because you're probably going to need it for a few things later, but we'll get to that. The next thing you want to do is contour your face. If you're into makeup, you've probably heard of this. It's very popular on Instagram to highlight and contour the face. In theater, it's necessary because it will help us give dimension to the face shape. And it helps the audience really see you instead of just a little blur of your face on a stage. So I would say the bigger the stage that you're in, the stronger your makeup needs to be in general, any kind of makeup. With the contour, if I'm doing like a smaller theater, I'll probably do a powder like this one. So I'm going to show you that. And I'm just using this kind of grayish brown with a fan brush. And what I'm going to do is find that like place underneath the cheekbone. And I'm just going to use this to come not all the way down here, just the side there. And then I'm gonna blend that a little bit. I'm gonna flip the brush over. It's gonna look pretty dramatic in person, but on stage, it'll look great. My hair's getting in there. And then I'm gonna use a little bit of the contour powder just up here on my forehead. If you have a wig, the lace sometimes will come down this far, so you wanna make sure that you have a little color there. I also like to contour a little underneath my chin just to give it a little definition. And then I'm gonna take a smaller brush and I'm going to just do a tiny bit on my nose. Now, this I don't do for every theater. It depends on how big it is. It's always good to have a friend watch the show and tell you how you look in the audience. You know, make friends with someone in the crew and they'll tell you the truth. There we go. Nice and contoured. So after you contour, you want to highlight the high parts of your face. That's really easy. It's one of the easiest things to do. So I'm going to show you that. I'm using this little palette again, and I'm just taking a brush here with that light color, and I'm going to go up on the cheekbone. I'm going to do my nose. This is really easy, so I don't think I need to hyperlapse this one. And then I like to take a little up here on my forehead. And there we go. A little bit brighter. One more spot. The lip right there. Use your finger even. Give you a little extra definition on the top of your lip, which you're gonna need later. It's a little too much. There we go. So the next thing I'm gonna do is a little blush. As you can see, my skin is very neutral right now. I am gonna use a neutral colored blush, and this would be good for any gendered character that you're playing. And I'm just, if you smile, you can see like the little apple of your cheek pops up right there. And that's different on everybody, but you still see it when you smile. I like to start there, do a little on the apple of my cheek, and I wanna take it up just a little bit. I'm gonna go a little more in depth with blush, but that is all I would do for a basic look. The next thing I'm gonna do is set all of this with a nice translucent powder. This one is almost, it looks white, but it's actually clear when it goes on. These usually come in, 2 or 3 shades, and it doesn't have to, obviously this doesn't match my skin, but you're gonna see when I put it on, it just blends in. So I get a nice big floofy brush for that, and I just lightly go everywhere. Lock in everything I did, and I'm just gonna set that everywhere before I do anything for my eyes and lips. And that's just gonna help it stay on while I'm on stage and I'm dancing and I'm singing and I might be a little sweaty. You wanna make sure it stays. The next thing we're gonna do is talk about eyes. I like to do very basic eye makeup for stage. I use a little palette like this. It's great, you can kind of do anything with it. And I will take the lightest color and I'm just gonna put that all over the eye. See that light one there? I'm gonna go everywhere. Really easy. Just nice and bright. And I also want to mention that, I have very light skin, and the richer your skin tone is, these colors are going to adjust a little bit, but what I'm teaching you is technique. So, this is obviously very light. So depending on the richness of your skin tone, you'd want to go a little richer, but the technique that I'm going to use to apply is going to be the same. So I'm going to do that palette that I had right here. I'm going to just take a little bit of that medium color, and I'm going to give my eyes a little shape. This isn't going to be very sassy. It's just going to be a little something so that you can see my eye shape a little bit better on stage. And just where I'm putting this is where I feel my brow bone under my finger. So it's not where the eyeball is, like you can feel that down here. This is where that bone is. Ooh, a little much, real life, real life. That's why we have tools and fingers to fix things. There we go. Just a little, see the difference between this eye and this eye, how it's just more sculpted? That's what you want to do. So the next thing I'm gonna do is give a little eyeliner. I'm gonna use actually a powder because this is a neutral look. I'm gonna use the richer shade in this little trio. And I'm gonna use a little brush, and I'm just tapping the brush on both sides. And then I like to give my brush a little pat so it doesn't have too much stuff on it. And I'm gonna use a mirror here. It's hard to do this in my camera, but hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I am going to just press that in to kind of like I'm pressing it into where my eyelashes come out. And when I open my eye, it's just gonna be a little more defined. And this, is what you're comfortable with, so it doesn't have to be a lot. If you're playing a male gendered role, probably want to do this very, very lightly. But if you're in a big theater, you do need a little definition. I talked to some of my friends that work on Broadway about what the actors that are playing male roles do, and it's kind of interesting because in some shows they're wearing a lot of heavy makeup, and in others hardly any at all. But a friend of mine shared that he was shocked when he got cast in a show on Broadway and the people in the dressing room didn't know how to put on makeup, and he had to show them. So it's always good to have that skill. So just a little bit. And then I feel like I went a little too far down. If you do that, have a little Q-tip on standby. You can never have too many Q-tips in the dressing room, to be honest. So I've just got a nice little definition on both eyes. I didn't do a hyperlapse because I wanted you to be able to see both eyes. There we go. That's it. I'm sure you're all familiar with mascara. Most people have used that before. You always want to buy black. It's the best especially for theater. A lot of people don't realize how to put mascara on this, so I'm going to walk you through that. I'm gonna get my mirror out here again so I can see. But you want to apply the mascara as close as you can to the eye without making yourself blink. And you get it in there, and I like to wiggle it a little and then twist it as I pull it away. And then, you know, give yourself a nice little coat. If you are playing a female role, you'll probably want to do a little more mascara, but everybody should have a little bit. And for a basic look, you don't really need to do the bottom lash. Now the next step is going to be filling in your eyebrows. So I'm going back to my eyeshadow palette that I used. This medium tone is going to be a good color for my eyebrows. You want to pick a color based on whatever color your hair in the show is going to be. So this looks like my natural hair color, which is not what I normally would have in a show, but let's pretend that it is today. When I do my eyebrows, kind of follow the natural shape. And a good way to kind of think about that is you should line up the front with your nostril. You want to line up the middle, the arch, with your iris, and you'd want to line up the end, the tail, with the outside of your eye. Now, eyebrows are really unique because each different era in history has very different eyebrows. So that is something that, depending on the character you're playing, you want to research. Like in the 1920s, people actually tweezed out their eyebrows and then made them really high. In the 1980s, they were really big. So there's all these different shapes of eyebrows throughout the last 100 years or so. So you want to research the period that your show takes place in. That's a really good way to make your character look more authentic. But this is just, you know, for a natural look. One more thing about eyebrows. If you do nothing else, you want to make sure you fill in your eyebrows because they really add to your expression on stage. So if you don't fill in your eyebrows, it's very difficult for the audience to see your expression. So you want to make sure that you really give them a nice definition. The last step of our basic makeup for stage is going to be to do some definition on the lips. Similar to the eyebrows, the lip is important to define because you want the audience to see your mouth clearly. I like to do a neutral lip if I'm doing something like let's say I'm in like Oklahoma and I'm a townsperson, you know, I don't need red lipstick. I just want someone to see my lips and, you know, I want them to not blend in with the rest of my face. So this is just like a neutral brownish pink. Kind of think like the color of your lip, but maybe a little richer. And there we go. So this is where I would stop. You're all done. You're ready to go on stage. You're pretty much ready to be any character. But what if the character I'm playing is kind of sassy? Or what if the character I'm playing comes from a time period that isn't my own? It's not contemporary. What if the character that I'm playing would wear glitter or fake lashes, or there's all these other things? So this is where you have to put on your actor hat and you think, am I playing a character that needs more than this to represent themselves authentically on stage? So I want to talk a little bit about how we can make our makeup a little more dramatic to play a specific character. I decided that I would do my makeup like one of the plastics from Mean Girls. So I am going to take off this neutral lipstick because that's step one, right? So I looked at some pictures. I did my actor research and it looks like pink is the color. And we want to make the eyes a little bit more dramatic. So what I'm going to do is start with a little eyeshadow that has a little more color in it. I'm going to leave everything else on except for the lips. This is like my base, and then I'm going to take this pinky color that's shimmery, and I'm going to pop that here to give me brightness. So I want a little more drama with my eyes for this character. I'm feeling a little dramatic. I'm gonna use this richer color here just to, actually I'll start on this side, to sculpt the eye. Because the way that my eye makeup was done before, which was really neutral, if I were on stage, it would just look very natural, like I didn't have anything on. But this character definitely wears makeup, and she wants you to know it. So I'm just making that crease more defined. So one thing you always want to keep in mind when you're doing the eye makeup is that your eyes aren't the shape, they're not the same exact shape. So if you want them to look balanced, you may need a little more on one side than the other, and that you just kind of have to go back and forth and keep looking at it to make sure you feel good about it. For me, this is kind of the part of when I'm getting ready to do a show where I start to really feel like my character, because I'm doing what that character would do every day, right? Helps me focus. I want to make my eyeliner a little more defined. You could do this a bunch of different ways. I like to use a gel. I think they stay on better on stage, and it's just my favorite. You can do a pencil, you could do liquid liner if you're very savvy. This is just a black kind of paste-like texture, and I'm using a brush to put this on. This is going to give me a lot more drama than the powder that I had before. So this character definitely would have a little makeup, more eyeliner, more makeup on, and I just do a little bit at a time till I'm happy. Now I do want the eyeliner to be skinnier in the middle and get a little thicker towards the outside. It's going to make my eyes look bigger. But also, this isn't for Instagram, and it's not for a magazine editorial. It's for theater. So you don't have to be like the most perfect makeup artist to make it look good. So I'm just gonna keep going back till I feel good about it. And then I'm gonna do the other side. Eyeliner is also a good place for you to think about the period that your show takes place in. Different time periods throughout history have had very different styles for eyeliner. So that's something to think about. I'm doing a little bit on the bottom, and I just take whatever's left over on the brush and just follow what I had done before, but now it's just a bit more dramatic. So I want to make this a bit sassier. So I am going to use false eyelashes. I already have mascara on, which is great. I'm going to take a little lash glue. I'm going to pop it right on my hand where I had that eyeliner before. This lash glue dries black, which I prefer because it makes your eyeliner look stronger, but depending on how confident you are, you can get a kind that dries clear. I take the lash, and these are just from the drugstore, they are not fancy, and I cover the whole thing in glue. I don't want it to be too much, but you see how it's got glue on the whole thing? I use my fingers to apply them, and I am going to look down, and I'm gonna sit it where I put my eyeliner earlier. And then I'm gonna press it in to my eye. This is easier if you don't have to hold a mirror in one hand. Go on down in there, buddy. There we go. Whoops. All right, she's being stubborn. Just taking the end of my brush there. There we go. Push her in. Use the little end of the brush. It's a great tool. Now I did get a little of the lash glue on my lid, so I'm just gonna take a Q-tip, gonna clean it up, while it's still wet. And when that dries, it should look perfect. Now, I should add that lashes are totally extra and you don't have to do them, but they are fun. So let's talk about the plastics. On Wednesday, we wear pink, right? So we definitely want to give the cheeks a little more pop. This is a nice bright pink. Same application, just a brighter color. And we are gonna go to town there because we know that our character likes a little drama. There we go. Lipstick. I found a really fun hot pink lip I'm excited to use. This is where you get to have the most expression with your character, is your lipstick. So I'm feeling pretty different from how I started off. And I'm feeling really different from that neutral everyday townsperson makeup to this like fun Mean Girls look, which also I think would be really good for like Legally Blonde. One last thing I'm gonna do is just make my brows a little stronger, and I told you to hang on to that concealer for later. So I'm gonna put a little of the concealer that I used on under my eyes on my hand, and I'm gonna use a brush, and I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna define my eyebrows with it, just to give them a little more power. I could also make the brows a little darker too if I wanted, but it depends on the wig. Like if I was gonna be blonde in this show, then I probably wouldn't want my brow to be darker. So the highlight is highlighting with the concealer is a good way to add it. And then I also wiped off a little of my foundation while I was doing my thing earlier. So I'm gonna touch up down here. And that is it. Give me a wig and I'm ready to go on stage. So I would love to connect with you. If you have questions about stage makeup or makeup in general, or you want recommendations, you can always follow me on Instagram. My handle is DumblePug. I hope you'll look me up. I'm happy to answer DMs about makeup. Again, it's Taylor Baltimore, and thank you so much for watching my stage makeup tutorial.